was, 30 years ago. So I was down there in Adams County, along the Ohio River. Anybody ever been down there? Beautiful country. They have power plants down there, and it's so frustrating to see what's going on, and it's hurting our state. So more needs to be done on that, but we're going to have to just keep on going on. Now, I have with me tonight, let's go back to the voter photo ID requirement. So we introduced it again, and Rosenberger stalled it again. All right? So we put a lot of pressure on the chairman, Tim Brown. He's from Wood County. And our good friend, John McAvoy. Everybody know John? Tea Party group out there outside of Toledo? Isn't it funny, that chairman of that committee is sitting right on top where that Tea Party is. He says, we're about to give him a very bad summer. So he said, how much pressure do you want to apply? I said, go for it. Yeah. So they did. Yeah. So he's having a miserable time. So he can complain to leadership, and then leadership, they got to move this bill, and then Kasich saying, ain't going nowhere. And he knows me, by the way. The governor knows me. I actually sat down with him before he ran. I was in a meeting. Bill Batchelder was having a fundraiser, and John Kasich was the speaker in 2009 over Medina. And John gave a great stump speech. This was when he was running. And just before he announced, everybody knew he was going to run. I did not know the man. I'd seen him on the Heartland on TV just like you, and we had not crossed paths. He had left Congress before I got involved with this, so we never really met. So he gave this great stump speech, and he ended it with this. These are the things we ought to be concerned about, not who's marrying who.
That was
and I'm like,
debate,
yeah, that was
in the debate. Yeah.
That was tipping it out right away. So I about ran over there to the door, but him and his entourage were gone. So I told a friend of mine who's now in Washington. He used to volunteer with us in 2004 in Columbus, and he said, why don't you just make an appointment with him? So that's a great idea. So I did, and I thought, well, I've seen him in action on TV, so I thought this could be a very short meeting, right? I can attest that it was two guys in an office in the Lieberman brothers' office that he served in, Jay Shabria and himself.
How much money did he steal from them, too?
It really was a small regional office, trust me. He was right about that. It was two guys in an office. So I go in there and sit down. Does every speaker have to go on the conversation with this gentleman over here? What's your name, by the way? So we just get on a first name basis.
Eric.
Eric, nice to meet you, Eric. Does every speaker get this? Anyways. Go in to sit down and talk to him, and I said, John, I think I'm here to help you. I know you're running for office, and so we talked, and I thought this could be very, very short. 45 minutes later, the only call he took was from Fox News. We got along pretty good. I said, I think I'm here to help you. I told him what he said. I said, I know you're voting in Congress. You voted for DOMA, Defense of Marriage Act. I think I know where you stand. But if you repeat that again, our folks aren't going to support you. So we went on, we had a pretty good conversation, very candid conversation. I liked what I heard. And so John Kasich's one of these kind of people that you may not agree with him. This is when he was early on. Yeah. And he came to a family policy gathering and he said, I'm not with you on the gambling issue. With the least respect, he just told us outright, right? And I disagree with you on the gambling issue because we're all opposed to expansion of gambling, so I'm not with you on that. And he said, well, I'm pro-life and these other things. He has done some pro-life things. But then we found out more and more what John Kasich was like. And it was so sad to see Bill Batchelder, who built his life on constitutional process, lover of the Constitution, send that Medicaid expansion through the controlling board to bypass the House of Representatives. In one action, he disavowed his entire life's work. I feel sad for him for that, because that will be his legacy. And he did that because of John Kasich.
Deal with the devil.
That's right, yeah. So, just tell you a little story about our governor. I was attending some Republican function up our way in Summit County. I was running in the door, trying to get seated, and I'm hearing my name called out in the lobby, the Hilton over there. Chris Long, Chris Long. And my wife and I were running, and it's the governor. He's going to be the speaker that night. And I said, oh, honey, come on over and introduce you to the governor. as we started in, and he's telling me about this, this sex toy business down there in Cincinnati that he didn't fund through Jobs Ohio, and which was a good thing. And I said, well, Governor, you did the right thing. You know, you get beat up by the Democrats, say, well, you're all for jobs, and this was so many jobs, and you're not going to give them money through Jobs Ohio. I said, no, you did the right thing. So why don't you just converse? I'd been to a Tea Party convention meeting in Columbus that week, and I said, well, where the Tea Party may not agree with you on everything, they really like your balanced budget amendment, which was true. He said, well, what things don't they agree with me on? I said, you know, Medicaid expansion. Now his staff, they're all around, you know, he gets this close into my face. My wife says, you didn't blink. And he starts in about, you know, it's for the poor and all these things. I said, Governor, it's an unsustainable program. We shouldn't make promises to people we cannot keep.
Yeah.
Well, that was about the end of that. So he headed out, and so did all they. That's the last time I talked to him. You can't have a gentleman's disagreement with the governor, I guess. So he knows who we are.
Yeah.
So he also knows how effective we are. Because of you. So voter photo ID required, they knew if it got started in that committee, they knew it'd fly through the House, go over to the Senate, then he'd end up on his desk, because they couldn't say no to something that polls at 70%. 91% of Republicans, 66% of independents, 55% of Democrats, a majority of African Americans all support voter photo ID. We can't get the governor to come along with us. The battleground state of Ohio to help stop voter fraud. No one's argued with us that voter fraud exists in Ohio, that it's a growing problem with 28 days of open voting still on the books. We didn't fix it. We'd like to reduce early voting. We try to have an adult conversation with our Democratic friends in the committee. How much early voting is an appropriate amount of early voting? 2 weeks? Remember the complaint was that folks couldn't get to the polls in 2004, long lines, not enough centers. They really beat Ken Blackwell up about that, the Secretary of State. Well, how much is an appropriate time of early voting? And how about Hillary Clinton? Yes, how about Hillary Clinton? She's beaten up Ohio, and she's in the state that only has 1 day of voting in New York. How about that? But we're disenfranchising the vote in Ohio by 28 days, wanting to just knock off Golden Week, so-called Golden Week, that overlap in the law, and we did get that done. The legislature, to its credit, did do some good things. They did a provisional ballot bill that requires more information on the provisional ballot. They cleaned up the voter rolls and getting rid of the deceased that are on the rolls. Okay?
They voted never for Republican.
What's that?
The deceased people never voted one time for a Republican.
Correct. That is right. They had getting rid of Golden Week and a few other measures that were very helpful, short of voter photo ID required. And I think it was in this group when we talked about making the provisional ballots a different color, because we talked about the problem of those things making their way into the optical scan machine. What kind of machine do you have here? Do you have touchscreen or optical scan here in Lake County? Touchscreen.
Yeah.
We have optical scan. That's where you make your mark on the page, and then like the old test in school where you circle a little dot, and then you feed it in like a fax machine. All right, it's a good machine. We had people coming in. Remember, you can't be denied. So even though they don't never present their ID, do you have any identification? No, but they can't be turned away. They get that ballot. They go over to the same little booth that you do to make their mark. And when Grandma is busy over here, they make their way over to the machine and feed it in when no one's looking. That's why poll workers said fleeing voter. I thought, what is that, a talking point? No, that was somebody committing fraud by putting, and once it's in that machine, it's done. I've talked to the Board of Election officials. So it was in this meeting, somebody says, why don't you just make them a different color? That would flag them then. They turned that down. I had the vice chairman, John Adams, good man, introduce it in committee. They wouldn't take the amendment. By the way, that was Mike Davila, who was chairing that committee. Mike Davila's over there in Cleveland. He wouldn't take the amendment in committee, then he brought it up in caucus again, and Batchelder wouldn't let him bring it up on the floor. Again, denying the process. Because the process is, when we vote and elect a representative, we expect them to have their voice heard in Columbus and Washington. Amen?
Yeah.
That's why enough of this business about one size fits all, that was what Boehner was doing. He was doing the tough road. If you didn't fall in line, you got your chairmanship taken away. And that's why Jim Jordan, I sit there and listen to, I watch this day, and I'm watching him on the congressional committee, and I have to remind myself, he's not a vice chairman of the committee. Because he was stripped of anything Boehner didn't want to give him. That man should be chairing a committee, right? Congressman Jim Jordan. But they keep it away from the conservatives. So the new speaker is going to have to be somebody who adheres to this. Well, obviously our voice is being heard. That's why Donald Trump is getting a lot of steam. Because he's unconventional, he's not part of the establishment. I mean, I've got my, reservations with Donald Trump, don't trust me. Although, when he started, this week, they were starting to roll out there the kind of the, you remember back in 2000, those of you can remember that, we weren't thrilled about George W. Bush, but they started rolling out the team that he would bring with him. It started looking a lot better, right? His draft choices of where he would put people, back then it looked good anyways. Well, Trump is starting to do the same thing. He's talking about Trey Gowdy being Attorney General. You like that idea, see what I mean? See? He starts putting together a team like that, I just might have to rethink about who I'm going to support here. Because Trey Gowdy would put Hillary Clinton in jail. And nothing would satisfy me more than to see that lady in orange.
How about Obama, too? He should be in jail also.
Absolutely. Oh, I think he's going to get a big plane and go over there to the Middle East somewhere. He won't be, when it's all said and done, when they find out what he's done, he'll try to get out of here and find asylum.
He'll go to Cuba. He'll rule there after Castro comes.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Well, we have some books. We have the voter guide is here tonight. We only have a few. For those of you that like to take these to your church, we are urging a yes vote on issue 2, a no vote on issue 3.
All right.
Issue 2 is the anti-monopoly measure on the ballot. Now, for those of you who might have some questions for that, it's always good to question. I had some questions too. I talked to State Senator Larry Oboff. Talked to former State Senator Tim Grindell. You all know Tim Grindell? Right? I got him on my program recently. Brought him out of retirement there a little bit. As judge can't do much, right? But he could talk on issue 3. He said some great stuff. What I liked about Tim, he was truly independent when he was down in Columbus. That's why Kasich didn't want him down there. He gave him an appointment to get him out of there. Okay, because he would be leading the charge in the Senate, introducing voter photo ID requirement, I guarantee. Yeah. Okay, and we'd be doing press conferences together and all this kind of stuff. We just don't have any independent conservatives over there in the Senate. Now,
isn't there a way you get a petition to get it on the ballot?
Thank you, Eric. And we just happen to have here one tonight.
All right, I'll sign it.
Now, so I apologize that it's taken so long. We, first of all, we try to get major money, because it takes major money to do a statewide effort, okay? To do a constitutional amendment to put it on the ballot this last year. I went to Washington, I went everywhere and asking for funding. And I mean, we would do it for a fraction of the cost of what they do it, all right? I think the going price in Columbus is $3 million. If we had $300,000-$400,000, we could have done it. We could have got it on the ballot. Because I know the strength of who we are. We're grassroots all over the state. Our folks would do it. It takes a ton of work, as you know, the Healthcare Freedom Amendment, right? Yeah. Well, then to get the attorney. So it was so difficult to get funding together, to get people's attention on this, and to pick timing. And then there were people that didn't want to touch it for one political reason or another. So we ended up getting it written by almost attorney by committee to put the language together. At the end of the day, the initiative petition process is just that. It is a layman's way to make your mark in our republic, is it not? Granted in 1912. So yes, you need a legal opinion of it, but it doesn't begin or end there, does it? In the end, it has to be simply read and understood so that the voters can understand it. So we had Bill Todd put it together, then he put in there a requirement for photo ID for voter registration. I said, well, Bill, I understand that, but that's not what we asked for. And we're going to put this on the ballot, want people to vote for this. And I said, we want voter photo ID for voting. So we took his language and we worked it around, so it's kind of like attorney by committee. So we finally have it. This is the first level. We need 1,000 good signatures that we're gathering right now, and I announced at the OLC meeting 2 weeks ago, so we have people circulating the petition. Now, you haven't heard it far and wide, because the last thing you want, according to John McAvoy, and he's right, he said you don't want this out there too far and wide, because this is the only first edition petition. What happens with us, we keep it going, right? Tonight I want you to sign the petition, take a few petitions, and then you mail it back to us. Only duplicate if you're going to get additional signatures for yourself. Don't send it to other people to do so, because then once this language is approved, we get a different petition. And then these petitions will no longer be valid. See, the language on it changes a little bit with the Attorney General and the ballot board approving the language. Then we go for the 305,000 signatures needed to put it on the ballot sometime in 2016. We just might be able to do that. If nothing else, we'll make them sweat.
Yeah.
See what I mean? And this is how it does politically. So we're gonna make an announcement in November when we submit our 3,000 signatures. We need 1,000 good. We'll submit about 3,000. And we'll make our announcement that because the legislature has failed to act to secure Ohio's vote, battleground state of Ohio is just too important to allow people that want to game the system here in Ohio to cross over our boundaries in a battleground in an election year and to commit fraud and try to throw the election. We're not going to allow that happen, we the citizens. Amen?
Amen.
All right, that's what we're doing. Thank you, privileged to be with you tonight once again. Couple questions.
I have a question for
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
How many years ago did this proving who you are when you go to vote, when did that all explode? When did it become an issue?
That's a great question. Because fraud is on the increase in Ohio.
Okay.
And we're a battleground state,
Yeah.
everybody understands that. You gotta have Ohio to win the electoral college vote.
I have an exact reason for asking you that.
Yeah,
I can remember going in person to my polling place. I decided I wanted to vote in person. Normally I vote, by mail, absentee, whatever you want to call that. And I was asked for my driver's license with my photo ID.
yes.
So I whipped it out there. And it verified my name, my address, the whole 9 yards. And I could hear, I went to, do my thing with the voting, and I could overhear other people being asked at that time
Yes.
to prove who they were also.
Yes,
That's why I'm asking you this question.
right, now.
When did this
So,
change?
that's right, and for all of us, we produce a photo ID when we go to vote, okay? We do that.
Yeah,
Let's say you go and you don't produce that. And you'll say, do you have a utility bill or prove your residence? And you say, no, I don't.
not on me, I wouldn't have known.
They can't turn you away, they must award you a provisional ballot. Now, that's if the attendant is doing what they ought to do.
Correct.
Right? There's sometimes that you go to your own precinct where you've always voted, and for some reason they don't have you in the book. We've heard of this happening, especially when they open and close precincts and move your precinct around. Sometimes it gets misplaced and you're not in the book. I've heard of people said, I've always voted at the same place, same precinct. They said, I'm not in the book, and I had to vote provisionally. There was, over in Van Wert County, okay, there was a lady there that went in to vote, said that she had already voted when she didn't. Now that reminds me about what happened with this early voting. When the poll books, when the precinct workers get the poll books, it's to indicate those who voted absentee in the 28 days prior, so that people aren't voting twice. And there's to be a mark next to those. But here's what happens. The Board of Elections, and the court ordered 3 days of voting on this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday before the Tuesday election, even Monday. It was Saturday, Sunday, Monday, excuse me, before the Tuesday election. No time to rectify the poll books. So these precinct workers got in there. We're talking about a major presidential election. People are at the door flooding to get in, and they've got to make a mark by hand, an A next to the names that are on this list. Then we had this lady over there in Cauga County, she was given the wrong list of names. So everybody that came in were told that they already voted. They're furious, I didn't vote. She found out her own name was on the list as already voting early, which she hadn't. Her daughter and her neighbor, none of which had voted early. Only to have the Board of Elections, Cauga County, come in mid-morning, swap out the list, and never said anything. So all these people were told they already voted. Now in Van Wert County, this lady was told she already voted, but nobody offered her even a provisional ballot. She said, and she's elderly, she said, I wasn't able to vote. Now that's a disenfranchised voter, but you never hear about that one. You only hear about the ones in the inner city, right? This was out in rural county.
How effective has Mike Devine, our Attorney General, been relative to the fraud cases? And I believe he's supposed to be investigating the abortion clinics. And are they making any headway?
He gets an A+ on the abortion clinics. Mike has been all over the Planned Parenthood issue and all over the abortion clinics as far as violations of the law, and he's been pursuing that. That I give him an A+. According to the Secretary of State's office, he could be more diligent about pursuing the prosecution of these people who were non-U.S. citizens yet cast a ballot. And we need to ask him about that. Yeah. Mike's been a pretty effective Attorney General, I have to say. When he was going to run, we all had our druthers because of his time in the Senate. I thought, well, Attorney General, but I've never sent him back to federal office. That's what I was thinking at the time. Didn't appreciate what he was doing in the Senate in the end. Even Rick Santorum, who were close friends, said, I don't know what happened to Mike. He went loopy and liberal there towards the end, which he did. And of course, the Ohio voters threw him out. So his next run at trying was Attorney General. I thought, okay, this might suit him, but I wanted to sit down with him first. Personally, I did. I said, Mike, last time you ran, you were opposed to the concealed carry measure. He said, yes, I was siding with prosecutors with law enforcement, but I now see that it's working effectively and I support our concealed carry law. I said, we also have a castle doctrine law in this state. He said, I support that as well. So I was beginning to ask him these things. He's not changed his mind on these things, of course. I know that's an honest response, okay? And I said, well, you're going to have to talk to the Buckeye Firearms Association about that. He didn't get their endorsement. But he had one great line. When I'm elected, I'm going to file suit against Obamacare. The place will erupt. But to his credit, I got to say, he's a very hard-working Attorney General. But let's ask him about these prosecutions. Now, local law enforcement, he'll tell you this. Local law enforcement are to pursue prosecution of voter fraud when it's in the county. But the federal cases of the non-U.S. citizens, that's his query. That's what he's to pursue. So let's ask him about that. According to the Secretary of State's office, they were still wondering why some of these cases haven't been pursued. Because the Secretary of State would like to put out a press release to that effect, and they have to go a long way in putting the fear into some folks who might think about doing that. If you're here on a green card or something like that, you want to get extradited. So when some Democratic poll worker sticks a ballot in your face or voter registration forms, you'll say, no, I don't want to touch that. Right? Because they want to stay in this country. So that would go a long way as well. So we need the Attorney General to do that. It's a great question. Do you want me to ask him? Do you want to ask him? He gave out his cell phone at our last conference meeting. I'll give you his cell phone number. So did Trump. Josh Mandel. Yeah. Josh Mandel and the Attorney General in that room of 330 pastors gave out their cell phone. Okay.
Good.
Any other questions? This lady back here.
Could you speak for a second on issue 1 and redistricting?
Issue 1 in redistricting. We're not taking a position as an organization on that. Right now what we have is a process, as you all know, every 10 years according to the Apportionment Board. And that's made up of the auditor, is it the governor, Secretary of State, and a House member. There's like 5 members of the Apportionment Board, right? And they get to draw the lines. It's kind of winner take all. So this last time, Republicans drew the lines. We'll take some suggestions, but they drew the lines. That's gerrymandering. Excuse me. 2018 should be a big Democratic year. Let's say, I think we're going to win next year, barring some catastrophe. The Republicans should win. 2018, Democrats are going to take back some seats. So by 2020, they could be in control of the apportionment board. So that next decade, they could be drawing the lines. So the Republican brethren want to hedge their bets against the future. So they thought, we better negotiate terms now. This is inside baseball. This is what they've done. So they negotiate with the Democrats to do this new way of redrawing lines. And that's what issue 1 is. So instead of every 10 years, it's every 4 years. Now some of the reservations about this, and Tom Z has spoken about this, that you got a member that gives them some hard time, and every 4 years, they could actually just rewrite that district and get them out. Which is true. Which is true. I don't know. I don't know how it's polling. I don't know how it's going. Issue.
Just to vote no?
What's that?
We vote no then?
Go to the Secretary of State's website and see the pro and con. Anybody else have any thoughts on issue 1? Does the group have a position on issue 1?
I don't
We
know.
did receive in the News Herald today, everybody got it, there's a pull-out section that explains all of the issues, pros and cons also.
Right, pros and cons, right. You know, I come from a Democratic area in Summit County. When I ran for office, it would have been great to have a more balanced district than run against a 70-30 prospect, right?
Yeah.
And especially as a candidate was grassroots and really working hard. We pulled like 37% of the vote, you know, but we didn't have much money, but you know, it was a very hard district. Sure, I mean, if you're in a difficult district, it'd be great to see something more balanced. Flip side of that, the Ohio House has conservative members because those districts are drawn very conservatively in those districts. The Ohio Senate is more of a blend. It's more of a moderate body, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's reflective of the district in which they serve. It's more of a generic district, more of a balanced district. They have to be more careful about what they, say, do, these kinds of things. Not how you and I would do it, right? But that's how they see it, to perpetuate and stay in office. And so you get more of a mellow, moderate flavor of a political entity, because in the Ohio Senate, because it crosses a lot of different regions. So if you get these fair districts, that's what you're going to end up with. Somebody who's not going to be that strong on one issue or the other. You know? So it's kind of, there's a mix of it. So it's deep with issue 1. I don't know. I'm leaning towards personally voting against it.
When in doubt, no.
Yes, that's what my board member says. When in doubt, throw it out. So there you go. Send it back to the drawing board. How about that? So it probably won't pass. Any other questions?
I have one.
Eric.
Is there a way you can pressure these prosecutors that don't prosecute voter fraud to get the people to vote them out if they don't?
In Cuyahoga County?
Hell yeah. Or the other county.
You know, that's a great point. If there was even a group that wanted to go and saying, look, here's the evidence. You know, the board did its due diligence, okay, and it's a nonpartisan board. They turned their evidence over to the prosecutor. For one reason or another, he said those cases were thrown out, this kind of thing. I mean, you know, he'll say something like, well, it was an elderly woman and she was confused and she voted in person and absentee and forgot. It's true, it can happen. It's difficult to prove voter fraud. But the fact of the matter is they can pursue it. Meloise Richardson,
Yeah.
she condemned herself on camera. So they had her dead to rights.
On tape.
On tape, right.
You should-
So you have to have corroborable evidence to prosecute someone for voter fraud. And there was some other cases in Hamilton County which they pursued. Now, I don't know where they're at with Franklin County. We need some more prosecutions between now